I am your Jonny Sinse. People always ached me. I didn't become a legend because of what I wore on camera. I became one because I refused to stay small when the world laughed at me. I remember the silence of my apartment after I quit my 9-to-5 job. No applause, no guarantee, just fear sitting beside me like a shadow. People think confidence comes first. It doesn't. First comes doubt. First comes humiliation. First comes nights when you question if you've destroyed your own life. I walked away from security to chase something bigger, and the world called me crazy. But what they didn't understand was this. I wasn't chasing fame. I was chasing freedom, and that decision changed everything. Bet on myself when no one else did. There was a night I'll never forget. I was sitting alone in a quiet apartment, staring at a ceiling that suddenly felt heavier than it ever had before. I had just walked away from a stable job, the kind of job people hold on to for decades, the kind that makes your family feel safe, the kind that gives you predictable paychecks and predictable dreams. And there I was, unemployed by choice. My phone was silent, no messages of support, no secret investors waiting to fund my future, just doubt whispering in my ear, asking me if I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. I remember opening my bank app over and over again, calculating how long I could survive, weeks, maybe a few months if I lived carefully. I felt the pressure in my chest, not from the world, but from expectation. Society has a script for you. Go to school, get a job, stay comfortable. I tore that script in half. And let me be honest with you, confidence didn't show up like a superhero. It didn't knock on my door and say, "You've got this." No, confidence came after I made the decision. It was born in the fire of risk. People thought I was reckless. Some friends distanced themselves. Some laughed quietly. Some asked, "What's your backup plan?" I didn't have one, and that terrified me. But here's what I understood in that darkness. Betting on myself wasn't about ego. It was about responsibility. If I failed, it would be my failure. If I succeeded, it would be my victory. No blaming bosses, no blaming the system, just me versus my limits. That's a lonely place to stand. There were mornings I woke up questioning everything. There were days when rejection hit harder than I expected. Opportunities didn't fall from the sky. I had to knock on doors that didn't want to open. I had to introduce myself when nobody cared who I was. I had to keep showing up when results were invisible. But every small step forward felt earned. Every win, no matter how tiny, felt personal. And slowly, something shifted. Not in my bank account at first, not in my reputation. It shifted inside me. I stopped fearing failure because I had already faced the worst version of it in my imagination. Once you survive your own doubt, the outside world loses its power over you. Listen to me. The world rarely applauds you at the beginning. In fact, it often tests you. It watches to see if you'll retreat back to safety. Most people do, but the moment you choose yourself fully, unapologetically, you unlock something most people never touch: ownership. So if you're standing at the edge right now, scared to jump, good. That fear means the decision matters. Bet on yourself anyway, because the only person guaranteed to stay with you for life is you. I turned criticism into fuel. Let me tell you something most people will never admit. Words hurt. I've heard them all. The jokes, the smirks, the dismissive tone when someone says my name like it's a punchline instead of a person. At first, I laughed along. I pretended it didn't bother me. I acted unshakable. But when the cameras turned off and the room went quiet, it echoed. There were moments I questioned if I had reduced myself to a stereotype, moments when I wondered if I'd ever be seen beyond headlines, memes, or assumptions. Criticism doesn't just attack your work, it tries to attack your identity. And if you're not careful, you start believing it. I remember scrolling through comments late at night. A mistake, by the way. Strangers analyzing my life like they were experts. Some mocking, some judging, some convinced they knew my entire story from a thumbnail. For a split second, I felt small, but then something inside me shifted. I realized something powerful. Attention is currency. Even negativity carries energy, and energy can be redirected. The same name they were laughing at was becoming recognizable. The same criticism meant people were watching. The same jokes meant I was relevant enough to be discussed. And relevance, that's power, if you know how to handle it. Instead of fighting the narrative, I leaned into it. I controlled it. I built a brand around self-awareness. I stopped running from the jokes and started owning them. When you own the narrative, you take away its weapon. Criticism only destroys you when you accept it as truth. I stopped asking, why are they saying this about me? And started asking, how can I use this? That question changed everything. Every insult became motivation to sharpen my discipline. Every doubt became proof that I was operating outside the average comfort zone. No one criticizes ordinary. They criticize visible, and visibility means impact. Here's what most people don't understand. When you step outside the norm, you threaten the comfort of others. Your boldness exposes their hesitation. Your risk reminds them of the chances they never took, so they project. It's easier to laugh at someone building than to admit you're standing still. But I made a decision. Their voices would never be louder than my purpose. Did it still sting sometimes? Yes, I'm human. Strength isn't the absence of pain. Strength is deciding pain won't control your direction. I built thicker skin, but I kept a soft heart. I learned to filter noise without becoming numb. I learned that criticism can either be a cage or a catalyst. You get to choose. So when they talk about you, and they will, don't shrink. Don't retaliate with bitterness. Absorb it, study it, convert it, let them talk. You build. Because one day, the same people who laughed will say they always knew you'd make it. And you'll smile, not because they changed, but because you did. I reinvented myself again and again. If you think I survived by staying the same, you don't understand survival. There were moments when I felt the industry shifting under my feet, trends changing, audiences evolving, platforms rising and falling. Fame is temporary if you treat it like a trophy instead of a responsibility. I learned that early. The first time I noticed attention slowing down, it scared me. Not because of ego, but because I knew comfort was creeping in. Success can seduce you into standing still. And standing still in a moving world is the fastest way to disappear. So I asked myself a hard question. Who do I need to become next? That question forced me to look in the mirror, not at my image, but at my mindset. Reinvention isn't glamorous. It's uncomfortable. It means admitting the version of you that worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. It means killing your own habits before the world does it for you. I changed how I presented myself. I studied branding. I understood the power of personality beyond a profession. I realized I wasn't just building a career, I was building a name, and a name can evolve. There were times I stepped into new spaces and felt like a beginner again. That bruises your pride. When you've mastered one arena, starting fresh feels like starting from zero. But zero is powerful. Zero means freedom. Zero means you can shape something intentionally. Zero means you're not trapped by expectations. I experimented. I expanded. I embraced humor. I leaned into relatability. I allowed people to see different dimensions of me. Not just one label. Not just one storyline. And let me be real with you. And some reinventions failed. Not everything worked. Some ideas fell flat. Some moves didn't land. But failure during reinvention is proof you're moving. The only people who don't fail are the ones who don't try. Every time I adjusted, I grew sharper, more aware, more strategic. Here's what most people get wrong. If they attach their identity to one chapter of their life, they say, this is who I am, and they lock the door behind them. But identity isn't a prison. It's a platform. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to outgrow old versions of yourself. You're allowed to pivot without apologizing. Reinvention kept me alive in a world that forgets quickly. It kept me relevant in a culture that scrolls endlessly. It kept me in control of my direction instead of being controlled by momentum. Listen carefully. The world doesn't reward the most talented. It rewards the most adaptable. So when life shifts, and it will, don't panic. Don't cling to yesterday's success. Step back, study the new landscape. Ask yourself who you need to become. Then become them. Break your own limits before the world breaks you. Because the strongest move you can make is refusing to stay the same. I chose freedom over approval. There was a time when I cared too much about what people thought, not publicly. I never showed it. But inside, I wanted validation. I wanted respect. I wanted people to understand my choices without judging them. I wanted to be seen beyond assumptions. And that desire, It almost controlled me. You don't realize how heavy approval is until you start chasing it. Every decision becomes filtered through invisible eyes. Will they respect this? Will this hurt my image? Will this make me look serious enough? That's a prison. I remember sitting alone after a major milestone in my career, something that should have felt like victory. But instead of celebrating, I was wondering who was still judging me, who still didn't approve, who still thought I should have chosen a different path. That's when it hit me. No matter what I achieved, there would always be someone unimpressed, always someone uncomfortable, always someone projecting their standards onto my life. And I had to make a choice. Do I build my life around applause or do I build it around freedom? Because you can't fully have both. Approval requires compromise. It requires shrinking parts of yourself so others feel comfortable. It requires explaining your dreams to people who never had the courage to chase theirs. Freedom, on the other hand, demands ownership. The moment I stopped explaining myself, something shifted. I no longer felt the urge to defend my decisions in every conversation. I stopped trying to reshape my story to make it easier for others to digest. I accepted this truth. Not everyone is supposed to understand you, and that's okay. Freedom felt scary at first. When you stop seeking approval, you stand alone more often. There's less noise, but also less applause. There are fewer opinions, but also fewer reassurances. But what replaces it is powerful clarity. I started making decisions based on alignment instead of validation. I asked, does this move me forward instead of, will this impress them? That single shift changed the quality of my life. I felt lighter, sharper, more intentional. Listen to me carefully. When you live for approval, your happiness is rented. It depends on someone else's reaction. But when you choose freedom, your peace becomes owned. There will always be critics. There will always be raised eyebrows. There will always be whispers. Let them whisper. Your life is not a group project. Stop asking for permission to become who you already feel yourself becoming. Stop shrinking to fit expectations that were never designed for you. Choose freedom, even if it means standing alone for a while. Because the strongest version of you isn't the one everyone claps for. It's the one who doesn't need them to. I've told you my truth, not the polished version, not the headline version, the real one. I stood in fear, I faced doubt, I swallowed criticism. I chose freedom when approval felt safer. And if there's one thing I want you to understand, it's this. I wasn't fearless. I was just tired of living small. You're sitting there right now with a decision in your chest. I can feel it. Something you want to do, something you're afraid to chase, something the world might not understand. Good. That means it matters. Listen to me. Legends aren't born in comfort. They're built in moments where quitting feels easier than continuing. If my journey proves anything, it's that reinvention is possible, criticism is survivable, and freedom is worth the cost. Now it's your turn. If this fire touched something inside you, don't let it fade when this ends. Stay connected, stay building, stay evolving. Like this, subscribe to this. But more importantly, subscribe to your own growth. Because one day someone will be listening to your story, and I hope you'll be able to say, I bet on myself.